All right, this is now take 2 of chapter 19. Everything that could possibly go wrong with the last audio was going wrong. I had dogs barking in it. I had interruptions in the middle of it. I showed a website on my page, on my computer screen that I didn't want to show. So I just decided to scrap the whole thing and start all over again. This is chapter 19 of When the Night Comes Falling by Howard Blum. And just quickly to address those people who are saying, oh my God, devil's advocates, you really think Howard Blum is an authority? No. My job, in my opinion, is to watch all the major sources that come out with some kind of quote-unquote hit piece about the cases that I follow, because I'm trying to counter mainstream media and the things that are shaping public opinion. Howard Blum's book may be helping to shape public opinion, so I want to read it, and if you don't like that kind of thing, don't follow along. But let's get into chapter 19, because chapter 19 is going to let me side tangent on the whole issue of whether or not YouTubers, internet sleuths, true crimers should shut the hell up and leave families alone. Are we ruining lives, or are we helping? Are we making a difference? And this whole topic is worthy discussing within the framework of chapter 19 of Howard Blum's book. So I'm going to do that. So let's get started first with Howard Blum's book. And as I go through it, I'm going to use it to launch into a personal rant at the end. This isn't a terribly long chapter, but I have a lot of things to add to the discussion, including my personal journey into true crime podcasting, like you're doing now. I don't know if you want to call it podcasting, YouTubing, whatever you want to call it. The true crime channel that you're watching now was inspired by something I want to talk about at the end of this chapter as well. So we heard the name Olivia Vitale at the end of the last chapter. I didn't know who Olivia was. I was curious who Olivia was as well. She is a YouTuber, if you will, and apparently a very popular one according to this story. So you guys may know her and go, oh my God, devil's advocates, you don't know who she is. There's a lot of people I don't know who it is. By the way, people bust my nuts all the time about quit stealing other people's work that covered this. I don't watch everybody out there. I will tell you who I do watch. Off and on. I don't watch all their stuff, so there's all kinds of stuff that these people have done. I'm going to show you at the end the true crimers that I follow and that I watch pretty regularly, off and on. Again, I don't watch all their content, but we're going to get into that at the end when I go into the narration about true crime in general. Vitale had inexplicably drawn the flurry of stories in the media, was drawn to the flurry of stories in the media recounting the brutal murder of Gabby Petito. A lot of us got interested in the Gabby Petito story, and so I can understand that. So this person with no journalistic experience, not constrained, in fact, let's just read that, not constrained by any formal journalistic training or experience, Olivia posted personal, empathetic, yet carefully researched videos about the case on TikTok and YouTube. This is exactly what I do. I do my own research. I follow up on things. I do carefully worded stuff. Some of you don't like the carefully worded stuff because sometimes in my attempt to carefully word things, I repeat things way too many times. This is one of the other things that happened on my thing. When I was doing the last recording that I had to retake, my phone was constantly going off and I couldn't remember how to, I couldn't get it quickly to shut the sound off. Same thing's happening. I didn't shut the sound off. I started the second video and now here it is going off again. So we're starting off like we started off last time. So this is getting into the people who don't have journalistic chops. Should they stay the hell out of journalism? Within a year or so, the Chronicles of Olivia, that was her show, was pulling in tens of millions of viewers. By the time she was 25, Vitale had one of the go-to sources for a generation who got their crime stories down dirty and dishy from the internet, and one of her avid followers had been Kaylee. So Gayle Concalves is one of the true crime fans of the Chronicles of Olivia. And this is what I'm telling you. Dylan also apparently was a fan of true crime podcasts and listened to them or watched them regularly. This is a thing. People are very big into this. And so again, we're gonna face that ultimate question in this episode. Are true crimers, YouTube podcasters or whatever, ruining everyone and destroying families and lives? Or are we doing a good, or is it a mix between the two? So she describes, Olivia, how Steve Goncalves, the father of Kaylee, the victim in the Idaho, one of the victims in the Idaho 4, actually sent her an email, and she didn't believe it. She gets a lot of negative attention. I get a lot of negative attention, and so she got an email from Steve Goncalves, and she couldn't believe it was actually him. She says, was it in this chapter? It says, was it possible that it had actually been sent by Steve Goncalves? And if so, she could be on the verge of a scoop. With the diligence that she bellied her 25 years. She tracked down to Olivia Goncalves, who confirmed that was in fact her father's email address. Excited, Olivia wrote back. So yeah, if I were to be contacted by somebody, a major player, a major person connected closely to a crime scene that I was following, I would be excited as well. Both would benefit from the Goncalves' appearance on the Chronicles of Olivia. So Steve Goncalves reached out to her, according to this, in email and wanted to come on her podcast talking about the true crime of his daughter's murder. And this is where I want to say to you out there who are just absolutely beating the piss out of YouTubers about how we should stay the hell out of it, we're ruining lives. Steve Goncalves saw somebody covering true crime and reached out to them to cover this story and to talk to them. So I don't know what to say, like how you can have it that we are ruining lives, that people are ruining lives, when the people involved in it that you're saying we're ruining their lives are reaching out to be interviewed by true crime podcasters and stuff like that. Now, granted, you can argue, as anybody would do, they're probably going to reach out to people who are going to put the spin on it that they want, but they are reaching out themselves to these people. Things have changed in America on how we get news and who we trust. So Vitale had landed the sort of scoop that a generation earlier would have gone to Barbara Walters. The Idaho murders was a news story owned by a brand new breed of journalists, an event sustained by the nonstop fulsome attention it received on the internet. Things have changed. People are less and less trusting of CNN and Fox and mainstream media, as they should be. Mainstream media has been failing to do its job. And so a new breed of journalists, if you will, even people who aren't formally trained in journalism, because maybe if we get formally trained in journalism, what we get taught to do is we get taught to shape the narrative in a certain way that supports the powers that be. Internet sleuths tend to go wherever the hell the story goes, and we don't have a dog in the fight. We don't care if it turns out to be player A or player B. We're just trying to get to the bottom of a story. And things have there's a larger number of people who are trusting internet sleuths to get to the truth. Now, Sydney Norton was another person, I think, that was a TikTok/YouTuber, a glamorous 32-year-old. She had star power. She was getting a lot of attention. There you go. That's the one thing that I don't have. These, your perfect scenario for YouTube podcasters or whatever is somebody who's good at what they do, which I think I'm going to be pretty good at what I do, but also are pretty and attractive and have star power. I do not have the star power. So we'll see how well I can do in this channel, but thank you for supporting me, by the way. Norton received an incredible video. It had been recorded by a King Road neighbor. So now this is going to talk about something interesting. Norton, as a true crimer, is getting a video. This is going to be a lot of stuff. I'm going to side tangent into my world and the YouTube sphere, the TikTok sphere, why I go down certain rabbit holes and why I don't. That's what I'm using this chapter for, as a framework for my own work and the whole topic about YouTube versus CNN, for example. So if you don't like that style, that's what a lot of this is going to be. This chapter is me using this chapter as a framework. It's a relatively short chapter to discuss the bigger topic, which is whether or not we, true crimers, are ruining things, ruining lives, or whether we're doing any good. Norton received an incredible video. It had been recorded by a King Road neighbor, and it revealed the real quote-unquote story of what happened that night. The neighbor, in fact, had witnessed the events from a distance. The tape, however, just laid the groundwork for the next part of the exclusive. There was an overwrought barrage of late-night calls to Norton, each with an emotionally charged plea, each filled with a rising level of hysteria. The caller wailing that her secret tape and her secret knowledge had made her a target. "I'm not safe," she pleaded to Norton. "Help me." Now, I want to explain this a little bit. This is a side tangent. Again, you may not appreciate this style. When I was working another case, well before I had a podcast or YouTube, I was just a blogger years and years ago. I had a case that I was following, and I had a bit of inside information. Somebody had basically rerouted someone's mail and was offering to tell me a person who was accused of the crime things that were in their personal life, because they had rerouted their mail through a simple post office request and was getting that person's mail, and they wanted to share that with me. That it was a crime, from what I understand, to reroute that person's mail, and the person was coming forward with me with insider information, a scoop, if you will. And I wasn't even a YouTuber at the time, and my life got crazy. Let's just put it that way. My life got I didn't take him up on that. I'm going to let you know right now, I did not take him up on that offer. I did not respond to that and say, yeah, give me your illegally obtained information. But having said that, my life got crazy. Her life's getting crazy. That in this example that we're giving, where somebody gives her a tape that's insider information, and of course, as a YouTuber, you're going to want to break that. You're like, I'm going to be the first person to talk about this tape, and I'm going to be famous because I've got the scoop. But this person who gives her this tape is terrified. Because one thing I can tell you, from formerly owning a security clearance and being a conspiracy theorist, the one thing I've always told my wife is, you don't want to be that guy who's the only person with a certain piece of information. If you're the only person with a certain piece of information that could ruin people or blow the whole lid off, you don't want to be that guy. Why? Because all it takes is, if you're the only person who has it, somebody can just kill you, and then the story is done. And so I've always been nervous. Even in the days of having a security clearance, I'm like, I hope to God I never get told something that's super damaging to the U.S. government, and I'm one of the only people who knows it, because that means short life expectancy, in my opinion. So anyway, she's getting she got a video that nobody had seen or whatever, and now the person who gave her the video is getting hysterical about it, like her life's in danger. Norton grew to believe that her access to this secret knowledge had put her own life, as well as that of her young son, in jeopardy. This is one of the things that happens to us. When we start getting on a hot lead where somebody's giving us inside information, we start to get nervous that somebody's going to take us out. There are people who will threaten you, veiled or directly, that if you go forward with this investigation, they're going to harm you. And so you have to constantly ask yourself, when you're a true crime podcaster or YouTuber or whatever, are you going to listen to it? Do you believe it's credible? Is somebody really threatening you, or is that just part of the job of doing true crime? So dangerous events were closing in on her, but in time, the video, while artful in its recreation, even ingenuous, was revealed to be a clever fake. The hoaxer's vindictive plan, once Norton had gone public with her scoop, the embarrassing reality would be revealed, and Norton would be discredited. So let me point out, I didn't read that super well, but this is why I don't go down certain rabbit holes. A lot of people like to spend a lot of time breaking down videos and isolating sounds. There's nothing wrong with all that work, but the reason why I don't jump on it right away is because of this. Somebody will come out with a video like the Green Elantra, and I'm not saying the Green Elantra is not legit. I'm not saying the Green Elantra is not legit. I'll say it, that's enough. The point, because you guys say I repeat things too much. The point being is that when a certain piece of information comes out and everybody runs with it, all it takes is for somebody to purposely put out a piece of false information, wait for you to jump all over it, make a huge deal and build your case around it, and then say, oh, by the way, that was completely false. And now everything you say has been discredited. It is what I would call a counterintelligence technique in the intelligence community in the United States. And I know a little bit about that because I was in the intelligence community for a period of time. So it's easy to discredit somebody that has a lot of stuff that they're right about by just simply giving them some wrong piece of information, letting them jump all over it. It's called giving somebody enough rope to hang themselves. So if somebody can give you a false information, really cleverly done, really good video, isolated, where you can hear somebody screaming, oh my God, Xana, don't do that, and it may be completely faked, and if you jump all over it, you make the mistake of jumping all over it and putting it all over the internet and telling everybody you've got this credible piece of information, and it turns out to be not true, now everything you say is going to be, yeah, you're the same guy that believed that was a real video. So that's what somebody tried to do to this person. They gave her a very well-crafted, very realistic-looking sounding video, included maybe some hysteria in it to make it seem more authentic, and the entire purpose of it was to discredit her, because if she jumped all over it and promoted it on her podcast channel, it would discredit everything she's ever said. And again, this, in my opinion, is done by people who want to. It can be done by somebody who really is involved in the crime and wants you to get off the trail because you were on the right trail, or it could just be done by a competitor who wants you to look like a fool, and that they can discredit you, then more people will go back to them as having the only true story. You know, true crimers, they sabotage each other sometimes on purpose to try to get you to make a mistake so you can be discredited, so they can say, well, if you want to know what's really happening, you have to watch me. I will never engage in that bullshit. I will never engage in that bullshit. I will never put out some kind of fake information hoping somebody else will buy for it and use it to discredit them. But that does happen. I digress. But Olivia did not have such problems. The envious competitors who had gone after Norton would not be able to impugn her work, for she was getting something real, a genuine scoop, or she was starting something real. So this was talking about how Steve Goncalves is going to give her credibility, because she's going to have Steve on her podcast, right? She's going to have Steve himself. So this isn't make-believe. This isn't somebody's YouTube video that might or might not really be the sound of the dog barking in the house or whatever. This is going to be Steve on camera, and it's going to give her, it's going to counter everything that they can do to her. Now, there's a hesitancy to her probing. So this talks about when she gets in front of Steve Goncalves and she's got him on, she goes to his house and she sets up cameras, and there's a hesitancy to interview him. No effing shit. If you get yourself to the point where you're now sitting in front of somebody who's the father of a victim who lost their daughter, how do you deal with that? You want to get to the bottom of the story. You want to ask questions that are very, very difficult. But if you come off rude and accusing the family of something nefarious involved with their own daughter's death, you could get punched in the face. Or worse, maybe you're lured in there and you're going to get killed by an angry father. It's like, you YouTubers, I'm going to freaking smoke all of you. So I can imagine, I'm putting myself in her seat, you got an interview with Steve Goncalves, you go there and he's cold and he's stone wall and he's kind of silent, and she's thinking, oh my God, what have I gotten into? I don't even know how to ask a question because I'm terrified to ask the wrong question and upset this man. Out of respect and out of fear, whatever the case may be, it's understandable. You're in a weird situation probing somebody who's that close to the story. So there's a hesitancy to her probing. It's as if she's acknowledged that she's intruding, that she doesn't belong in this house of grief, and her reaction is understandable. Steve's face is grim, solemn, and expressionless, a blank and flat as an empty piece of paper. Watching the tape of the interview, one can feel the harsh tension in the room. Will the Goncalves reconsider and order Vitale and her producer to turn off the cameras? So yeah, you get in there, you got a very uncomfortable situation. You want to be able to talk to these people and get them on camera and ask the questions that you really want to know. But if you piss them off, well, everything you just do get washed under the thing will be like, yeah, you're not going forward with that. Anyways, Steve recovers in this this video. So Steve's kind of stoic, flat, whatever the case may be. He's uncomfortable with it, even though he called it a little bit, it looks like. But eventually he recovers. He has not forgotten his agenda, and he is soon back in the present. He wants to let the ineffectual authorities, so he thinks the authorities are not doing their job. That's why he's reaching out to YouTubers. The authorities are not doing their job. The authorities are not doing their job, so he's reaching out to YouTubers. So he wants them to know, the ineffectual authorities know that what they can expect from him. He wants them to understand that if they can't get the job done, that he will. Staring into the camera, he proclaims with an earnest passion, "We are not going to go to bed and wait for other people to solve our family problem. This is a family problem." He continues to drive the point home that he's on the case. "We are not going to sit here and let someone else do a job that we can add value to," he determined, as he puts it, to make an impact, to listen to what people are saying and be part of solving it. He needs to feel, he volunteers, with an affecting candor, that I gave it my all. I did everything that I could. And oh my God, Steve Goncalves, could you have said it any better? That's the same way I feel. I'm not just going to sit here and wait for mainstream media to tell me what happened. I'm not going to sit here and wait for, as the book describes it, the ineffectual law enforcement to do a half-assed job at getting to the bottom of it. I'll do my own freaking research, thank you very much. I'll ask my own questions, thank you very much. I will go where I think the story should have gone, not where the authorities will go and where mainstream media will go to tell you this is what happened in the matter. And the one criticism if I have for Steve Goncalves is, at some point, it seems like he started to accept the official narrative. And that's not to say that the official narrative might, at the end of the day, end up being true. We don't know. But the point being is that Steve seemed very open to be critical of mainstream media, law enforcement, and the judicial system. Hey, that sounds a lot like the Devil's Advocates channel. My entire thing is being questioning of mainstream media, law enforcement, and the judicial system. And Steve was like that. But at some point, he's starting to a little bit rally, even though I heard, he's still going to keep an open mind at trial, which suggests that he's willing to go where the story goes. And that's what we all are trying to do in the internet community, is just go where the story goes and find out what really happened. As I will say one more time, if Brian Koberger is guilty of it, I want him to get his just come up, right? His comeuppance. I want that if he's the one that did it. But if he did it with others, I don't want those others to walk scot-free and get away with murder because we didn't want to ask the right questions. We didn't want to probe whether or not there was others involved. We don't want to probe if Brian Koberger wasn't involved at all, because we've committed. We've committed to executing a man now before he's even had his first day in trial. I don't want to be that guy, as Steve would say. I don't want to be that guy. He also acknowledges his limitations, his inability to have an insider's knowledge of the furtive currents swirling through Moscow in the weeks preceding the murders. He openly appeals for help in his hunt to find the killers. This takes a whole community. It takes all of us to solve. Steve Goncalves, a victim's family member, is admitting and asking for help from the true crime community. He wants people to step forward, to start talking, to go down the rabbit holes, to go down the paths. I would argue Steve's asking us to do those things. And some of you out there will tell me, leave it alone. You're ruining these people's families. You're ruining their lives. There are some family members who are connected to this, who are going on talk show hosts. Why? It can be argued Steve Goncalves just wants to find out what happened, and he'll go on every podcast and talk to every person he can that might help understand what really happened that night. So there you go. I'm not sure that this is such a horrible thing, and we're going to give some prime examples at the end. He's staring full-faced at it, focusing directly at his audience. This is Steve Goncalves looking into the camera. This is on us, Steve declares. Are we going to let these people exist? Meaning the people who did the murders. And then it's as if the entire hour-long interview has built to this uttering of a single terse yet unflinching pronouncement. With his face as somber as a graveside's mourner's, he promises, I'm telling you right now, we're coming for you. Again, Steve Goncalves appears to just want to know what happened, period. He just wants to know what happened. And so I understand that. So I wanted to point out a few things. I got harsh reality on the screen. We're going to talk about this in just a moment. But mostly I want to talk about what I just lost again. Good Lord. So my interest, I want to tell you, in true crime came with the Christian Smart case. Your Own Backyard, Chris Lambert. This was a guy much like myself. A guy who I feel is easy to talk to, puts some people at ease when they talk. I know some of you are going to be like, dude, you don't put me at ease. You make me freaking want to jump off a cliff. You're so, you talk so fast. And so, anyways, point being is that I feel like I'm a down-to-earth guy who asks legitimate questions, and you can tell, I feel, people can tell that when I'm talking about my cases, I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm not out there with an agenda to say this is how it happened. I'm asking questions. I got beat the hell out of for doing that the other day. I'm just asking questions, people. Okay. You're like, oh my God, stop it. I already talked to you about how many times you said that. So let's talk a little bit about Chris Lambert and why this case was so important to me. Chris Lambert was a podcaster who started a podcast, YouTube, whatever. That was just a podcast. Just listen to it. Called Your Own Backyard in 2019. It's relatively recent. In my memory, it's very recent. And he was investigating a 1996 murder of a cold case of Christian Smart. And to summarize what happened in that case, Chris Lambert got the family to talk about something they were done talking about. They were done figuring they would ever get justice for their daughter, Christian Smart. They had ideas who did it, but they couldn't prove it. Law enforcement couldn't prove it. It had been a long, long time, and it was a cold case because they just obviously weren't going to ever break this. And the family was like, we're done. We're done talking about it. It's time to move on, whatever. Now, Chris Lambert starts getting into it, and he's a guy like me, and he's just asking good questions. And somehow he convinced the family without pressure, because Chris Lambert doesn't pressure no one. But the family, from what I understood, started to listen to Chris Lambert and hear how he talks, and went, you know what, this guy's an all right guy. This guy doesn't give us the heebie-jeebies, and maybe I'll talk to him. And Chris Lambert got them to talk, and Chris Lambert got other people to talk, and Chris Lambert got police to talk, and Chris Lambert did a bunch of research, and he broke that case wide the hell open. Chris Lambert broke that case wide open. Soon, we got all the evidence that we needed for Paul Flores, who ended up being convicted in a court that was resurfaced, the investigation reopened and closed, and they convicted Paul Flores, in my opinion, because of Chris Lambert. Chris Lambert reopened the interest in the case. He got everybody interested in it. He broke things that the police hadn't been able to break because he has tools in his pocket that law enforcement couldn't do. And two things happened. One very tragic, and then one that brought me to tears and changed my life, I think, in this true crime. It's what really is the impetus behind me doing what I'm doing, which is that law enforcement, in their quest to save face, despite the fact that it became extremely obvious to most of us who listen to Your Own Backyard. And by the way, if you want a real treat, go back and listen to Your Own Backyard from point one, even where you know where the trial is going to end up, because I told you that Paul Flores is convicted. It'll blow you away watching how that developed. It's an amazing story. But anyways, law enforcement, in their effort to save face, the fact that they couldn't break the story for forever, basically said, Chris really didn't do all that much. We were already on all these things. We had been investigating. Chris did help us at some point to get some pieces, but in the end, this was our investigation from the beginning. We were on it. They got up with the families and took credit for breaking the case and for putting Paul Flores away. Chris Lambert stood by silently, watching law enforcement take the credit for how they had done so good, pat ourselves on the back. We finally got justice for the Smart family, and I felt like that was the fucking biggest tragedies I've ever seen. Oh my God, you disrespectful SOBs. You only got this man because of Chris Lambert and his investigative work. And they allowed him to have a little bit of a 2 minutes in the sun, standing in the background, and a pat on the back with hey, he helped us a little. But they clearly wanted to take full credit for this. Was an investigation that never had truly closed. We were all on it, but thanks to Chris helping us out a little bit, we got the case closed. That's not what happened. That's not how most of us saw it. And I want to point out the point that brought me to tears. before that horrible moment, Chris Lambert was watching the culmination of all his work lead to the arrest and a trial of Chris Lambert, and of Paul Flores. And Chris Lambert's showing up, and he's driving, and he doesn't have much money. He's scraping together pennies, to get a coffee so he can go to the courthouse and be there every single day to report. So he can just continue to give his followers what they're looking for, which is, okay, I'm not going to let you guys down. I'm going to be there every day in the court. I'm going to follow this. And there was a morning, and I'm trying to even say it without coming to tears again because it was just such a touching moment. There was a moment when there's only so many seats in the courtroom, and the press is taking up the seats in the courtroom, and Chris Lambert shows up, and I think he's a little bit late, and one of the major news stations, it brings tears to my eyes now, one of the major news stations gave up their chair for him, and they said, look, this is your case. See, I can't even say it, I'm so emotional. It was an amazing moment. I'm an emotional guy, so anyways, for what it's worth. It was an amazing moment. But again, it flies in the face of people who say YouTubers need to stay the hell out of real investigations. You're ruining lives. Chris Lambert broke that effing story. Chris Lambert deserves everything he could get out of that. I don't know what's happened to him. I don't know if he made any money off of it, if it changed his life. It better have changed his life. That guy earned it. That was an amazing story, an amazing conviction, and it was all Chris Lambert, in my opinion. Yes, law enforcement did work with Chris Lambert, and they did probably finish up some strings, but they wouldn't have those strings to tie together if it wasn't for Chris Lambert. There's other cases, by the way, and I was going to go through them a little bit and tell you about the Bear Brook podcast and what it did, and a Browning podcast, the Power Citizen Sleuths, the Truth and Justice podcast with Rob Ruff, and others, and cases that have been broke, solved, or changed because YouTubers ask the questions, and that's all they do. I ask the questions. And so I'm going to show you a few things. I'm going to talk right at the moment about my favorite YouTubers, and I'm just going to put this on the screen so I can overlay things during this segment. So I'm going to record it, then I'm going to come back and overlay pictures as I talk about these. I just wanted to tell you about, in the Idaho 4 case, some of the YouTubers that I follow, so to speak, and I want to clarify what that means. So by follow, I want to make sure you understand. I don't have enough time in my day with my own research and my own videos that I'm making and interacting with my own audience to watch everything that comes out from other people and steal their ideas. That's one of the things that somebody said to me that was super, super hurtful. And now that I told you it's hurtful, I'm going to get it more because that's the way that the internet community works. But which is that, when you take other people's information, please give them credit and stop putting it off on your own. I don't steal nobody's information. Let's keep in mind that we're all, that was horrible grammar. I don't steal nobody's information. Anyway, don't nobody? Yeah, I like it. Anyways. The point being is that I don't steal people's information, but we're all covering the same true crime case, and so we're going to stumble upon the same things. And I would be remiss if somebody comes out with a video and says, "Oh my God, there's a Hyundai Elantra that's green that looks white on camera and has a bumper that looks like the license plate wrapped around and it looks like the same." I would be dumb not to look into that and talk about it if I think there's something there, and not go, "Oh well, somebody beat me to the green Elantra story, so I can't talk about it." So let's keep in mind, I'm going to talk about some of the same stuff some of these other YouTubers talk about. But there are people that I like, and here's the thing. When you hear that I'm admitting that I watch them, I'm going to recommend some to you. I'm going to recommend 4 of my favorite Idaho 4 YouTubers. And I'm going to maybe mention 1 or 2 I don't like. Maybe. I don't know. I don't want to be that guy who tells you who not to watch. Because in reality, here's side tangent. In the reality, if I get to go to the Idaho 4 case murders, the trial, and I see one of these YouTubers that I don't like there, I would be more than happy to shake their hand and say that I respect them for what they do, even though we have completely different takes on how the case is going. I would respect them. I don't know if they would respect me, because in today's day and age, you seem to hate people who think differently than you. I'm okay with people who think differently than me. I would show them respect. I would give them a hug and shake and say, "Good job on covering this case. I don't agree with your opinions, but good job." Anyways, let's talk about the people I love. Harsh Reality from UK covers the Idaho 4 and other cases. Like me, he's got multiple cases he follows, but I watch mostly Harsh Reality because of following the Brian Kohberger case. And what I love about Harsh Reality, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what I love and what I maybe don't love of 4 different content providers, because you have enough time in your day, right, that you can follow me and them. And to be fair, these people are everyone I'm going to name is much bigger than me. So the converse is probably true. You knew about them long before you knew about me. And you only know about me because you're watching this video right now. But anyways, point being is that Harsh Reality, one of my favorites. He's from the UK. He wears a hat all the time like me. He talks a lot like me. His sense of humor is like mine. In fact, one of the fears I have is that somebody's going to blame me for ripping off his style because we have the same kind of sense of humor. Love that guy. Would love to meet him someday. It would be a super honor. I've reached out to him once or twice trying to see if he would be even consider going on a live with me or talking about that. I haven't gotten any response. Maybe it's because he gets so many emails he doesn't even see it. I don't know. But the point being, harsh reality, totally recommend doing that. Another one that I'd be remiss, and I probably should have led with it because maybe it's the more popular one. Everybody and their dog tells me I have to know and watch Jay Embry because Pavarotti has it all figured out. That's one of the things I want to tell you, that I respect Jay Embry a great deal. I respect Pavarotti. I love the research that he does. His mind is sharp. I love that stuff. There are things I don't like about Pavarotti, and I bristle when people tell me if I want to know what happened in the Idaho 4 case, all I have to do is watch Jay Pavarotti because he's got it all figured out. That makes me get bristled a little bit, right? And then I feel like my negativity to that attitude, if you want to know what happened, you just have to watch Pavarotti, he's got it all figured out, sounds like I'm angry at Pavarotti. I'm not angry at Pavarotti. I am angry at people telling me that if I want to know what happened, all my research is dog shit and I can just go watch Pavarotti and stop doing what I'm doing because Pavarotti's got it all figured out. So, but to a Pavarotti or Jay Embry's credit, he does a lot of really good deep dives. He goes down rabbit holes that I don't agree with. He at times repeats, like he'll come up with an idea that I thought you didn't have really good basis for that, and then he'll run with that episode after episode. It's light criticism because, again, I think Jay Embry is hot on the trail. He's got great ideas. You should pay attention to Jay Embry. Just understand that there's some things about some paths he goes down that I'm not ready to go down, and then it gets annoying when you tell me that if I want to know what really happened, I just have to watch him because he's got it all figured out. I think he's missing some things personally, but I love it. Enough said about Jay Pavarotti. Crime Circus, and these are not in order, by the way. These are not in order of what I would recommend. Crime Circus, I don't know if he's still doing a lot of videos, but Crime Circus has got this kind of creepy vibe going on. He's got white face paint and little spiders tattooed on or whatever etched into his face in red. He looks kind of a creepy guy. He talks creepy on purpose, like, let's see what I have to say about myself this time. It just, the way he enunciates things has a creepy value to it. It's kind of like a horror film podcast, and it's kind of cool. At first I was turned off by it. I'm like, what is this? How do I take this guy seriously? His vibe is very cool. It's a little weird at first. So if you watch it and you're thinking this guy's creepy, yeah, it's not for everybody, but he's got good research and he's got really good points. And as well, I would say I like watching his stuff. He's really good. There are things I disagree with him on. There are times when I think he's going down the wrong rabbit hole. We all feel that about each other in this community. So that's another person I might recommend is the Crime Circus, specifically in the Idaho 4 stuff. Really interesting guy, really strange delivery, unique, kind of cool. And then Nika Neuro Nuggets, I'm going to give her a shout out because this beautiful woman, I think she's been formerly in the military. She's just got a lot of passion, and this is what I like about her. She's got passion like me. She gets shouty like I do. Pavarotti doesn't really shout a lot. Harsh reality doesn't shout a lot. They have passion, don't get me wrong, but they don't shout a lot. I think Nika Neuro Nuggets show, she'll get shouty, she'll get loud, she'll get belligerent, and I dig that about her show. And again, I don't watch her show as much as the others, even, to be fair. But when she comes on, I almost always get sucked in for a little bit watching her show, and she's worth taking a listen to. So there's some recommendations for you and some things that I like and I don't like about them. On the behind the scenes or members only area, sometimes I will break down some of their videos and talk about things very specifically, but not necessarily for the main channel. So if you want to hear more about what I think about those people, and by the way, if you're a member or whatever and you want me to comment on a video that they have made, any one of those 4 people that I've mentioned, that you want to comment and say, hey, what did you think about Pavarotti's take on the Green Elantra? Ask me and I'll do a video response, and I'll make it a response to you, but for the benefit of all the other members so they can get it, because if you asked it, probably somebody else is wanting to know it as well. So at the end of the day, I want to just say, true crime podcasters, things are changing in America. People don't trust mainstream media, nor should they. Mainstream media just continues to spin a narrative on whatever the narrative of the day is. It's usually set by somebody else what their agenda is, and they go with it. Some of us true crime podcasters we view ourselves as being honest with the thing. We don't have a dog in the fight, and we go with where the trail heads. And unfortunately, with things like going back to Steve Goncalves in this chapter to wrap up, since we'll come full circle, if Steve Goncalves had the, what do I want to say? If he had the desire I don't think he's going to talk to someone like myself, he has to understand that while I completely respect his situation, it's difficult because we want to ask the tough questions. We want to ask the tough questions. And we don't have dogs in the fight, right? So we're just asking questions. This was, again, for all you people who beat me up for saying, hey, I'm just curious. Are you just asking questions? Yes, for the 20th millionth time. I'm just asking questions here. Thanks for listening to Chapter 19. We have finished another section of Howard Blum's book. The next section is on forensic stuff. That's going to get super interesting. It's going to get pretty detailed, I imagine. There's a lot of chapters on the forensics, which is interesting, considering how forensics may not even be a major part of this case. We'll get to that when we get into that next section. For that, I say, have a great day. Thanks for listening to my rambling rant, and I'll catch you later.